This is gonna be a good way to build end range hip internal rotation strength for both of your hips together. So if you know that you need both hips to be worked on and they don't have a ton of asymmetries, this is a great way to kind of get the most out of your time. Be very efficient with your mobility training. So you're gonna be on your back in the 90-90 position with your legs up on the wall. So that, and grab a yoga block, keep that close by. You're gonna lay on your back here. You want your knees at about 90 degrees and your hips at about 90 degrees. Then you're gonna put the yoga block in between your knees. If you do not have a lot of hip internal rotation, you're going to want to keep your legs a little bit more apart here with a yoga block a little bit wider. If you know you have lots of hip internal rotation, then you can make it a little bit skinnier so we can work on a little bit more range of motion. So play around with that if you are feeling like you don't have a lot of options, or if you feel any hip groin pain in the front of your hips. That is going to be closing angle sensations, and we may need to play around with the start position of your knees, and or you may need to tuck your tailbone up and feel your back flat in the ground, or the opposite position. I would try both. If you cannot find a position that works where you still feel pinching in the front of your hips, this is not a good exercise for you, and you're going to need a modification. So from here, once we're in the correct setup, you're going to walk your feet out into hip internal rotation. So as my legs are coming out, my feet, my hips are rotating in. So we want to think about those thigh bones kind of rotating towards each other. Then from here, we are going to squeeze the yoga block and rotate our legs a little bit more, lifting the ankles off the wall. From here, you should feel the front and sides of your hips really working to do this movement, and then you parachute back to the wall. And this should be an exercise where you barely can leave the wall. So if you start here and you rotate all the way, notice how much range of motion that is. This is way too easy for me. So to make this a little bit harder, you would just walk out further. Now, if the opposite happened when you tested this and instead you had to lift everything and now you see how I'm kind of coming into hip flexion, my spine's moving, and I'm all over the place, then that is too hard. So I want you to find the position where it is difficult enough that you really have to focus, but not so difficult that everything else has to help you. So we really just want to work on this motion. So once more, first create a little bit of intra-abdominal pressure, a little bit of tension, sniff some air into your abdomen, squeeze those muscles like you are trying to rotate your ankles, squeeze them a little bit more, float the ankles off the wall, rotate, squeeze the yoga block just a little bit, 3 to 5 seconds or the prescribed amount of time, and then parachute them back to the start position. You're gonna perform this for the prescribed amount of reps, typically about 3 to 5, and you should notice maybe some cramping, maybe some fatigue as you're doing this. And as you do this on a week-to-week basis, that should start to go away. You should get better at them. That's how you know you are building hip internal rotation and range strength.